Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. Place we talk about everything and anything that is geek, whether it be movies, TV, comics, or video game. And as you know, last time we talked about some of the best Godzilla movies ever made. And as you know, there's a new Godzilla coming out next year. Hopefully, it is all totally awesome from what I've seen. It looks like it's going to be a really, really good Godzilla. And as it looks to me like he's going to like the original, like I said before. And as I mentioned last time, other than being somebody, I mentioned 10, I think top 10 best Godzilla movies ever. I mentioned in the course of the show that there was some this week there was some bad Godzilla movies, and this week I'm going to discuss probably 7 of the worst Godzilla movies ever made. And here's Godzilla. I mean, everybody knows Godzilla from the campy monster movies. Like it's just like he is acting like dancing or drop kicks or flying and stuff like that. I mean, they know all the goofy stuff that happened in the 70s and the 60s and 70s Godzillas, and some people probably would prefer to forget it. But I said I'm gonna mention like 7 of probably the worst Godzilla movies ever made. And starting things off with number and before I start, once again, the images you see in this movie belong solely to Toho Toho Company Limited, and not to me. So please don't get mad at me. I'm just using visual aids here, and keep in mind this is some out of my own DVD collection. Start off things. Number 7 is Invasion of Astro Monster. I mean, once again, this movie, and what makes this movie so bad, I mean, it's okay, but what makes it so bad is that it's like yet another one where Godzilla and his allies or ally fight invaders from space. I mean, there is several of them like that. I mean, you got Godzilla, you got Destroy All Monsters. You got Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Invasion of Astro Monster. Let's see. You got Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. You got this one. You got and you got Terror of Mechagodzilla. I mean, I know alien invasion stuff is cool. I mean, I love those kind of stories, but there's such a thing as beating a dead horse. I mean, in this one, they're from a place called Planet X, and I forget what they originally are. The creatures originally are. I don't know if they are humans or not, but basically they look humanoid, and they basically just try to invade the world and everything. And they bring Godzilla and Rodan there to fight King Ghidorah again, and basically it's just Godzilla and Rodan versus King Ghidorah yet again. I mean, it's like every time I'm gonna say about every one of the alien invasion of Godzillas have had King Ghidorah involved in them somehow. I mean, you got. As they Destroy All Monsters, that was aliens that was like worms or something, worms and something. It's some kind of space worm, but they wound up bringing King Ghidorah into it. And you have this one to bring King Ghidorah into it. You have Godzilla vs. Gigan, which is the intergalactic cockroaches, bringing King Ghidorah into it again. I mean, they've done King Ghidorah back to death in the Showa one. They did to him what they did to Lex Luthor in a lot of Superman movies. And I said he's just done to death. And that's why in the 90s he was so cool, because he was fresh and new. He wants space monster again. But like I said, that's what made this movie so bad. It was just, once again, another space invaders movie with King Ghidorah and Godzilla fighting each other again. To me, that's why that one was so bad. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't as good. It wasn't as good as, say, when they did the first one. It was like Alien Invaders versus Godzilla. I mean, to me, the only Alien Invaders versus Godzilla one was any good was destroy all monsters, because they essentially took all the monsters and unleashed them all over the world. So and that's what made that one so cool. And number 6 on my list is I kind of mentioned this one in the last one when I talked about the Japanese version. I talked about the Japanese version of this film. I'm gonna show you the same DVD package again, but this time I'm gonna say it's the Americanized version of this one. I mentioned it last time as being Gigantus the Fire Monster. I mean, the Japanese version of this was great, but I watched the American version, which is on the same disc, when they called it Gigantus the Fire Monster. It was terrible. It was terrible. They butchered it horribly. I mean, excuse me. I mean, you can't even. I mean, they took anything Godzilla away from Godzilla and just called him Gigantus, and claimed it was a she. I mean, seriously? You can't go butchering a Godzilla movie like that and then butcher it by putting, just put this convoluted story in it. They said they're trying to make it not anything like Godzilla. He's like, but it, and a guy in the commentary said, but it is Godzilla. How in the world can you take a Godzilla movie and say this ain't Godzilla? I'm gonna dare bring it up again. It's like the New 52. And Lobo saying, oh, this ain't Lobo. This is. And it's like, you can't do that to a Godzilla movie. I mean, seriously, you can't take a Godzilla movie, rename him, put his opponent monster's roar in his mouth. I mean, it's just bad, and then badly dub it and everything. It was just terrible. It was terrible the way they did the Americanized version, and to me, it was the butchering of a really good movie. I mean, a really good classic Godzilla movie, and that's why that one was, to me, it's terrible. That's why, to me, the American version of it is terrible. It is not like the American version of Godzilla King of the Monsters. That one was great. Godzilla 85 was great. Gigantus, terrible. And Better Off, forgot. And that's why that's on my list. And number 5 on my list is Terror of Mechagodzilla. I mean, it's kind of supposed to be the sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and that they've somehow salvaged Mechagodzilla from the bottom of the ocean. Supposedly it's supposed to be the same people, supposedly. It's supposed to be the Space Ape people from that movie, supposedly. And they come back trying to conquer Earth one more time with it. And, well, I said, what makes this movie so terrible? It's a good movie from what I've heard, but it's another bad American cut. I mean, it gets to the ending and it gets pure downright confusing. I mean, it's great they introduced a big giant dinosaur in a movie called Titanosaurus, and then they had Mechagodzilla in it too. I mean, that's great. But when it got towards the end, it got really, really, really confusing. I don't know what cut they used, but they said, and when I read online, they said it was like subsidiary cuts and everything. Man, it was terrible. I was like, that's why it's so confusing. And the same company that put out ones like I showed you, like the Gojira re-release, the release of the original Gojira and Godzilla Raids Again and ones like that, they re-released that one too. And I imagine it's probably a lot better than this butchered up cut that I just showed you the DVD copy of. And it's also been put out on VHS, as you can see here, if I can get it right quick. This one. This is the same cut, just on VHS. The same cut that's on that DVD. It makes it every American DVD and VHS cut is that, except for when they put out the original Japanese version. Then you really got something good. And I imagine it probably is bad, and that's why that one was so, to me, is so terrible, because The movie itself is great until it gets to the end and it spoils the whole thing for you. How confusing it is. It's like, okay, what did I just watch? But that's, to me, that's why that one's so bad. And that's why it's made it the number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is probably one everybody considers a classic, but to me it's kind of not really. Deserves a remake. King Kong versus Godzilla. To me, what's so wrong with this movie right here that could have been a definite clash of titans? They took a clash of America's greatest, most popular monster and Godzilla, and Japan's most popular monster, Godzilla, and turned it into a comedy. It was too goofy and campy. It was too much of a joke. And I don't know if y'all heard this, but during the 90s, the one who made it, they tried to make it again. They tried to remake it on a more serious tone this time. And they could, and Universal won't let them use the name King Kong. They wouldn't let them use the creature, so they basically couldn't remake it. How in the world they got away with it the first time, I don't know, but this time they wouldn't let them make it. I mean, they had made 2 King Kong movies in Japan, and one of them introduced a creature called Mechanicon. They actually tried to use Mechanicon in a 90s version, and they said they vetoed, and it was vetoed once again by Universal, saying that's still too much like King Kong. So that's where you wind up with Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 from. That instant classic. But still, this deserves a remake, a more serious tone remake. It don't, I said, because this version here is too jokey. It's too much of a joke. I mean, to me, it's more of an exact sequel to Godzilla Raids Again, but it's too campy, too much of a joke. It's too good, and to me, that's what really ruins it for me. What could have been a great Clash of Titans wound up being ruined by comedy, and that's why that one's so bad. And that's how it ended up on number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list is probably another one that everybody will probably disagree with: Mothra versus Godzilla. I mean, I am by no means a Mothra fan. I'm Godzilla all the way. And even if Godzilla's the villain, I'm going to root for Godzilla. I ain't going to root for a butterfly. I ain't going to root for Mothra. And in the movie, and what's so wrong with this movie, other than the fact that Mothra is supposed to be the hero, Godzilla basically looks like a bumbling idiot in this movie. I mean, he has a great entrance. He comes out from under the ground and everything. It's a great entrance and everything, but when he's against the troops, he basically he's tripping all over himself on the beach. He's falling on the beach. He's like a bumbling idiot. He's like how he has 2 left feet. I mean, he's like a bumbling idiot through the whole thing, and then in the end, and spoiler alert, if you don't want to listen to this, plug yours now. He gets beat by 2 caterpillars. I was like, that, I don't like that. It's just not cool to me. And that's why I think that one's so terrible. I said he gets beat by 2 caterpillars. And also he looks like a bumbling idiot in the movie with 2 left feet. He don't know how to stay, and he's like a klutz. And that, to me, that just defames Godzilla. He's supposed to be a terrifying monster. How are you so terrifying? You look like a drunk on the street. You can't even keep your balance. I mean, seriously. Like you had a few too many by the time he got to the beach. I mean, seriously. I mean, to me, that's terrible, and that's why that ends up, and that's why Mothra vs. Godzilla lands at number 3 on my list. Godzilla is not klutz. And number 2 on my list is one that probably some would think would be the worst of all time, but actually there's one worse than this, but we're going to get to that in a minute. But for now, number 2 is the 98 Godzilla starring Matthew Broderick. This one's I mean, the movie itself is not terrible. I mean, it's a good monster movie. It's a great giant monster movie, period. But that has that one little thing wrong with it. They slapped the name Godzilla on it. I mean, look at this. You see this? This is not Godzilla. This is either a giant Komodo dragon or an iguana that has had exposed to a few too much gamma rays or too much plutonium or neutronium or whatever. Too much bomb radiation. It's a giant lizard or dinosaur, whichever you want to say it is. But this is not Godzilla. It's not Godzilla. That's the only thing wrong with that movie. It's not Godzilla. Otherwise, it's a great movie. But it's not Godzilla. And I like the fact, but I do like the fact that that creature was folded into the Toho family, and they actually use him in Godzilla stuff. Now, he is now a Godzilla monster. He's not Godzilla, but he is a Godzilla monster named Zilla. They do that. They do let him keep the Zilla part of the Godzilla name. And just recently in comics, they actually had him go toe for toe with the real Godzilla again. I mean, that was a spectacular fight in that comic. And despite the 16 seconds that he fights Godzilla in Godzilla Final Wars, it's still awesome. And it's just awesome that he doesn't fade into obscurity, but that they do keep him around. But the fact is that what makes that movie so bad is they label it a Godzilla movie without being Godzilla. It's like Superman with lightning powers. It's not if he's not got the cape and can fly and has the ability to bend steel with his bare hands and look through solid objects and stuff, he's not Superman. He's just somebody with lightning powers. It's a good idea for something else, but don't give it that name. It's the same with Godzilla. If you're going to have a monster movie that look with a giant dinosaurian monster, don't say it's Godzilla. Call it when it's not. When it looks nothing like him. Because he's just going to look bad. And that's why that's number 2 on my list. And finally, number 1 on my list, I don't know if this would get mixed reviews or not, but I'm going to definitely say it's the worst Godzilla movie I've ever seen. I've only seen it twice. That's how bad it is. And the fact is that it isn't even with the rest of my collection in the DVD case. I'll tell you something. It's Godzilla's Revenge. I mean, the Japanese version, I imagine probably okay. It's called All Monsters Attack. I imagine it would be pretty good, but the American version was terrible. I mean, it dubbed them all. I mean, it's essentially the whole movie don't sound good anyway. I mean, it's just a little boy has a dream about meeting the little Mila, Godzilla's son. And in the American version, Godzilla's son actually talks to him verbally. And the way he sounds almost like Barney. That tells you anything. Sounds like Barney, and essentially it's about bullies. The overlying message, the whole thing is having to deal with bullies and how to stand up to bullies. And in most of the movie, it's just essentially a clip show. I mean, every time you see Godzilla, it ain't nothing but a little boy's dream. I mean, he's not storming into Tokyo or anything like that. But it's just not, it's not real. It's a dream. And then you got this Gabra creature. You don't know what he's supposed to be. Like a lizard with blonde hair. Like a giant lizard-like creature, a reptilian creature with long blonde hair. It just keeps picking on Minilla and eventually ticks off Godzilla, who eventually just wipes the floor with him. But like I said, it's not good. It's not a good movie. It's terrible. To me, it's the worst. I mean, this ought to tell you something about how bad it is. I fast-forwarded through most of it. While looking at it, I fast-forwarded through most of it. It was that bad. It was that horrible. And I haven't watched it again. I haven't watched it in probably 6 years. I haven't watched it in 6 years, or maybe even longer than that. I haven't watched it in probably a decade, probably. And I'll tell you how bad it is. I haven't watched it in years. It's horrible. And to me, that's what merits that one to be the worst. It's just all around a horrible movie. Just recycled movie clips. The fact that it's a little boy's dream, stuff like that. It's just bad. And I don't recommend it at all. I recommend it if you have it, put it in a cabinet somewhere and don't ever watch it again. If you had the Japanese version, drop me a comment. Tell me how it was, please. I want to know. I want to know if it's worth my time. And what do y'all think? Do y'all agree with me? Is that the worst Godzilla? Is Godzilla Revenge really the worst movie ever? Is there a worse Godzilla movie than that? So let me know. Is there one do you think is horrible that I didn't mention on this list? Let me know. I would love to hear from you. Drop me a comment. As always, drop me a comment in the comment box. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what y'all have to say. And of course, that's it for this week's edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. And as always, you got anything to say about the show, leave me a comment in the comment box. If y'all got any ideas about anything y'all want to hear me talk about on the show, drop me a comment in the comment box. I would love to hear your ideas. I'm always looking for fresh, new ideas, things to talk about on here. I would love to hear from you. I would really love to hear your ideas. I honestly would. I mean, I would love to hear your ideas. I would love to hear your ideas, and so just drop me a comment. And I'll see y'all next time.